Today, we're talking about a story that sounds like a total lie but is recorded in a Brazilian police file from 1966. It involves two men, a steep hill, and a set of instructions that didn't make any sense until it was too late. So, if you're into stories that are weird and a little bit too real, you're in the right place. Let's dive into the deep end. If you saw Manuel Pereira da Cruz and Miguel Jose Viana on the morning of August 17th, 1966, you wouldn't have looked twice. They were two guys in their 30s, dressed in crisp, formal suits carrying a briefcase and a couple of light raincoats. They lived in Campos, Brazil, where they ran a local electronics repair shop. They were the guys you called when your radio hissed or your TV went dark. That morning, they told their wives they were heading out to pick up some specialized components and look at a car they wanted to buy for the shop. They had a massive amount of cash on them. They kissed their families goodbye, walked to the bus station, and disappeared into the morning commute. It was a completely standard Wednesday, or at least, that's what everyone thought. By 2:30 p.m., they arrived, but they didn't go to the car dealership or electronics wholesaler. Instead, they walked into a local hardware store. They didn't buy wires or tubes. They bought two heavy and stiff waterproof jackets. Next, they stopped at a bar to buy a single bottle of water. The waitress, Maria, would later tell police that Miguel looked like a man who was vibrating with nerves. He kept checking his watch. He was meticulous. He insisted on a receipt for the water bottle, which seemed a little weird for a guy carrying millions of dollars. They left the bar and walked toward a place called Vintém Hill. A security guard saw them get into a jeep with two other men. They didn't look like they were being kidnapped. They looked like they were going to a meeting they had planned for a very long time. Vintém Hill isn't a mountain, but it's a brutal climb. It's a steep, jagged outcrop of rock and thick tropical brush that overlooks the Atlantic. In 1966, there were no paved trails. To get to the summit, you had to fight through waist-high grass and slippery mud. Imagine these two men, still in their leather dress shoes and formal suits, pushing through the thorns as a light rain started to fall. They weren't dressed for a hike, they were dressed for a ceremony. Witnesses at the base of the hill saw them ascending with a strange sense of purpose. They weren't talking to each other, they were moving upward, eyes fixed on the peak, clutching at a briefcase that contained the handmade tools of their own destruction. 3 days later, and the heat was stifling, an 18-year-old kid named Jorge was up on the hill, trying to get his kite into the breeze. The hill was thick with brush and tall, sharp grass. As he pushed through a particularly dense thicket, the sweet scent of decay hit him hard. He found them in a small clearing. They were lying side by side on a bed of leaves that looked like they had been neatly cut with a knife. They were still in their suits, still in their new raincoats. Their hands were folded perfectly over their chests, but Jorge didn't see their eyes. Instead, he saw two crude handpieces of lead sheeting resting on their faces. They looked like metallic blindfolds, held on to nothing but gravity. No holes, no way to see, just two men, perfectly still and blinded by lead. Jorge didn't wait around. He turned around and sprinted until he hit the paved road. When the police finally reached the summit, they found a small orange notebook tucked into Miguel's pocket. There was no suicide note. There was no explanation. Just a set of instructions that felt more like a technical manual for a ritual. It said, 4:30, be at the agreed place. 6:30, swallow capsules. After effect, protect metals, wait for signal, mask. The capsules were gone. The millions of dollars were gone. But their tools were still there. The police found two damp towels near the bodies. Why towels? Maybe to wipe away sweat, or maybe to protect their skin from something they thought was coming. The lead masks weren't just for show. They were thick, they were heavy. They were designed to block something powerful that these technicians believed was bright enough to destroy their sight. This is where it gets dark. When the police searched the workshop back in Campos, they found more than just radio parts. They found a secret room. Inside were stacks of books on scientific spiritualism. These men weren't just technicians, they were believers. A few months before they died, they actually built a device in a garden that exploded so violently it left a crater in the ground. Most people would have stopped there. They didn't, because they were obsessed. And in the world of the strange and unexplained, obsession is a vulnerability. It makes you easy to manipulate. The lead masks weren't just a choice, they were a precaution. They believed whatever signal they were going to witness would be so brilliant, so intense, that would destroy their retinas if they looked at it directly. They went up that hill to be blinded on purpose, waiting for a revelation that had been promised to them. The oddest account of this whole case comes from a woman named Gracinda, who lived at the foot of the hill. She swore that on the night they died, at exactly 6:30 p.m., the time the signal was supposed to happen, she looked out her window and saw a glowing orange orb hovering over the summit. It sat there, silent, for 3 minutes before emitting a flash of blue light and vanishing into the clouds. I'm honestly puzzled about how so few people arrive at this conclusion, but to me, it's always seemed like the most obvious explanation for what happened. I don't think they were looking for a portal, and I definitely don't think they found one. I think Manuel and Miguel fell victim to a brutal and fatal ruse. I believe they encountered a con man, someone who knew exactly what they were looking for. He knew they were technicians with the fascination for the fringe, and he promised to sell them radioactive material or a piece of otherworldly tech. Why they'd want it is anyone's guess, but they were all in. The con man gave them a location for the handoff. He told them to bring cash. Then, he handed them the anti-radiation capsules. He told them they were medicine to keep them safe during the inspection. The men likely crafted those lead masks themselves for extra security, or maybe the con man provided them to sell the lie. They showed up, they checked their watches, they swallowed the poison, put on their masks, and simply dropped dead in the mud. And while they lay there, blinded by lead and gasping for their last breaths, the con man didn't see an orb. He just saw a briefcase full of millions. He picked it up and walked down into the city. So now I have to ask you, what do you think they were actually looking for through those lead plates? Was it a genuine signal from somewhere else? Or were they just two men who were too smart for their own good, caught in a script they didn't fully understand? Okay, on a more personal note, I really want to thank you for hanging out with me today. I know basically I'm the smallest fish in a massive pond, and I'm just super grateful you're giving this channel like Autumn a chance. I'm putting everything I have into making these stories feel real and grounded, because I think we're a little tired of the slop that's everywhere lately. If you enjoyed the vibe of this video, and you want to see more cases like this, it would really mean the world to me if you consider subscribing. I drop new stories at least twice a week, and I'd love for you to catch the next one. Alright, stay safe out there, friends.